What is good, everyone? I'm sure you've heard by now all of the buzz and praise surrounding Inside Out 2. So I got to check it out Tuesday, and is it as good as they say? Is it actually one of the best Pixar films in the last 5 years? Yes. Yes, it is.
Madness is in the house!
Inside Out 2 was certainly a great sequel. Now, was it as good as the first one? No, I wouldn't say so, but that's really not taking away much. Like, the first Inside Out, I think, is just truly a top-tier animated film altogether. Like, I think it's a top 15 animated film ever. So I wouldn't put Inside Out 2 on that caliber, but it's still a great film. And I was in a crappy theater filled with immature kids and teens that were making a bunch of weird sexual comments when Riley was apologizing to her friends. But I was so engrossed with the emotional weight of the story that I was barely paying attention to the guy next to me yelling at the theater to shut up. I don't want to go too deep into spoilers, but I'll just say that this ending truly did surprise me. In the first movie, there was a certain element to the emotions and their amount of control that made me kind of wonder how that was going to progress in future movies. And I'll just say that what they did in this film was really spectacular and clever, and it made me fully understand what they were going for in the first movie. I will say that there are certain moments where the emotional moments just don't hit as hard as I feel they should. Especially in the middle of the film. Like, I almost didn't even realize it was supposed to be an emotional moment. But it certainly did have enough of the emotional punch that Pixar is known for. Goofy, calm down! Anyways, one more thing that I'll say is that I really enjoyed Anxiety as a villain.
Hello! I'm Anxiety. Where can I put my stuff?
Like, off the top of my head, I think she's probably one of the best villains in Pixar. Like, I wasn't sure if Inside Out 2 was going to go the similar route of the first one, where there wouldn't be much of a clear villain. But they don't. Like, Anxiety's not necessarily out to hurt Riley, but she is the clear villain. And the way that she just restructures Riley's mind feels so logical and understandable, and very interesting. So, yeah, this is absolutely a great movie that I'd highly recommend, and it's a nice return to form for Pixar. And that's kind of what I want to talk about. The nice return to form for Pixar. That sounds familiar, because that's what people said about the first one. And that to me is what's so interesting about Inside Out 2. Not just that it's a great movie, but it actually kind of solidifies a trait in the Inside Out franchise. Let me explain. After the critical and commercial hit that was Toy Story 3, it seemed that Pixar could do no wrong. That is, until the release of their next movie, Cars 2. This movie proved that Pixar was mortal. For whatever reason, Cars 2 decided to do 3 extremely strange things. First, it was a sequel to their worst reviewed movie up to that point. Second, the movie decided to promote the comedic side character to the lead role. And third, this movie decided to abandon the sports genre of the first movie and replace it with the spy comedy genre. This led to Cars 2 not only becoming Pixar's worst reviewed movie, but it became Pixar's first movie to receive a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes. And it's still regarded by many as the worst Pixar movie. Pixar followed this up with Brave, which was also seen as a major tier below Pixar's usual standards, despite being positively received at the time. Many people described it as a tonally inconsistent movie that oddly felt more like a lesser Disney princess movie than a Pixar movie. Phew, that was a mouthful. A year later, Pixar released their next film, Monsters University. Nowadays, this movie has amassed a cult following and is frequently regarded as one of Pixar's most underrated movies. Believe me, I agree with this sentiment. If you checked my ranking of the non-Toy Story Pixar sequels, I had it very high. However, at the time of its release, it was generally viewed as a disappointing movie that did not live up to Pixar's usual standards. Many people viewed it as a generic and formulaic college movie, that did not match the creativity and originality that made the studio iconic. At this point, many people started to worry. After a stretch of 11 movies in which 10 of them had a 90% or higher on Rotten Tomatoes, Pixar had released 3 straight films that were 80% or lower. Many thought that Pixar had lost their touch and that their time at the top was officially over. That is, until their next film, Inside Out.
Great. I'm gonna be sick. In the house of the dead, what are we gonna do? We're gonna get rabies! Get off of me!
This movie surprised everyone with a funny and heartfelt story that could also help people process their emotions in a whole new light. This film was by far the best reviewed and grossed the most compared to Pixar's prior 3 movies. People hailed it as a wonderful return to form for the studio, and then they followed it up with The Good Dinosaur. However, this movie was notorious for a severely troubled production process, so there's a good chance that the movie was intended to be released before Inside Out. Fast forward to the last 5 years, and Pixar hit another low point after the release of Toy Story 4. Pixar followed up Toy Story 4 with Onward, which bombed, in part by COVID, but also because of a weaker story. Weirdly, Pixar is starting to form a pattern of stumbling after Toy Story sequels. One more reason to be afraid of Toy Story 5. Then they released 3 films straight to Disney+, which gave Pixar little opportunity to make any meaningful profit from these films. In 2022, Pixar's return to theaters was a gigantic whimper with Lightyear, which was a historic bomb for the company and a lackluster movie overall. And finally, Pixar released Elemental, which had a historically bad opening, but did manage to break even. However, it was clear that Pixar's last 6 films as a whole were losing the studio a lot of money. And I think most people would agree that none of these movies, with the exception of Soul, match the general standard of excellence from Pixar. Again, many people thought that Pixar was truly doomed. Not only were their movies not as good, but they were also losing money at an insane rate. That is, until Inside Out 2, with great reviews from both sides of the culture wars, as well as a dominant opening day at the box office. Inside Out 2 is the first Pixar film in years to be both a critical and commercial success. Like the first movie, it is seen as a great return to form that revived Pixar's dying pulse. To me, this puts the legacy of the Inside Out franchise in a whole new light. Not only are they great movies, not only are they insightful movies, but they also helped to bring Pixar back on track. I guess you could say it's very fitting and ironic that these films are called Inside Out. Like, Pixar was inside a ditch, and these movies got them out. But anyways, this gives me a new appreciation for both of these movies. Pixar to me is easily the best animation studio in the business, so it's great to see when they can recapture the magic of their golden age. But in this way, Inside Out 1 and 2 kind of serve as the aces of Pixar's sleeve. When it seemed like Pixar was down and out, they show that they still do have it. Years in the future, both Inside Out movies may be looked at as landmark films in Pixar's filmography that restored the studio's level of excellence and led to a string of great movies. That remains to be seen with Inside Out 2. But one thing is clear, when Pixar just focuses on telling great stories, and when Disney doesn't sabotage them, they can still make fantastic films. They just have to choose to do so. Thank you for watching. Be sure to check out my video ranking the non-Toy Story Pixar sequels, and check out my 5 Years Later series where I analyze every billion-dollar film from 2019. So far I only have Captain Marvel up, but Endgame's coming soon, don't worry. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.